Playdate Season 2 is now out in the open. Since May 29th, 2 games have arrived on Playdate every Thursday for 6 weeks, making 12 games in total, as well as a little extra surprise. These are my real-time immediate reactions to all of the Season 2 games as they released in real time. Reviewing and talking about so many games means we've got quite a long video, so I would recommend watching this in chunks, take each week as an individual episode perhaps, or just skip through to the games that you're most curious about. I want to say thank you to Panic for giving me a press pass for Season 2, but as I was already intending to buy Season 2, I put my money towards the Pizza Playdate cover instead, so you still got your cash out of me, guys. Right, we've got 12 games to get through, so let's just get on with it.
Week 1 of Playdate Season 2, and I think they started really strong. We got the first 2 games, which was Fulcrum Defender and Dig Dino. I was quite blown away by Fulcrum Defender. It's an arcade style like shooting game where you play as a Fulcrum, I suppose. By turning the crank, your sort of cannon in the centre of the screen can fire out at all manner of different geometric enemies that come towards you. Little circles and squares that have different flight patterns and attack patterns are coming towards you, and you just, shoot back at them and get a high score. Every couple of minutes or so, the game will offer you an upgrade, a new weapon, effectively. And there are so many different weapons and potential upgrades that randomly appear. Every time you play, you could pick something different and have a completely different experience. And it's just a very classic and gratifying and kind of addictive gameplay loop. It was a very good kickoff for Season 2, because it just showed, here's a really strong, simple gameplay loop for you. Use the Playdate's unique control scheme, go crazy. And yeah, it's not something that, hasn't been done before, but I don't think it's been done as well as this previously. Dig Dino was the other game, and it's a fun sort of puzzle game, I guess is what you would call it. You play as a group of archaeologists, and you go out, basically, you get a patch of dirt, and each day you have a set of tools and a finite amount of energy in which to use those tools. So once you've done a certain amount of digging and a certain amount of drilling, you run out of energy for the day and you take back whatever bones and artifacts and gems you've found back to your base camp, upgrade your gear, and then go out and do it again. The thing that they try to hook you with in order to keep you digging is that the fossils and artifacts you find unlock little bits of flavor text and story to kind of give you a little insight that there was like something really weird going on in the past, and like dinosaurs were fighting like a war against somebody, and they have all these odd weapons, and they're like crazy dinosaurs. They're not dinosaurs that we have found in the real world. They're like dinosaur with like a crystal on its head. So that's cool. The gameplay loop didn't really grab me that tightly, partially because I find the music quite irritating on this game. It got stuck in my head in the most annoying way, and yes, you can turn the music off. But yeah, as much as I was impressed by the gameplay loop, I don't think it's going to hook me much further than week 1 of Season 2. I'll give it a go, but I think it's likely that a game is going to come along later in the season that's just going to sort of push Dig Dino out of the way. But yeah, it was a really strong showing, I think. 2 different gameplay styles, 2 different visual styles, really showed what the Playdate is good at in terms of control and gameplay loops. However, I will say that both were potentially outshone by Blippo Plus.
You're watching State of the State. In science news, astronomers at the GCC Observatory have picked up an obscure signal. I'm joined by Dr. Zeph Boyne, who is credited with the discovery.
Blippo Plus is a fictitious TV network. You turn on your Playdate, and these shows are just like streaming, both figuratively and literally. They're running in real time. They're about 1 minute each, and there's 10 like TV channels showing these 1 minute programs on a continuous loop all the time. So it's literally like turning on your TV in the olden days, I guess, when people used to watch broadcast television, because I don't do that and I don't know anybody who does. broadcast television. The shows were on at particular times, and then you watched them when they were on, and then they weren't on anymore. And that's what Blippo Plus is like.
And of course, fantasy role-playing.
Welcome to Fantafacts.
I can't explain how TV works. Like, it's really weird to go back and explain, like, this is how TV was. And I know people still watch, like, Freeview and cable TV and Sky and stuff, but, like, I don't. Do you? Like, I don't think I know. I know Alex watches Strictly Come Dancing. That I know. So you just sit there and channel surf. You can turn the crank to channel surf and find different programs. And there are all these, like, weird, like, comedy sketches, effectively. The idea is that Playdates are picking up a TV signal from, like, a faraway planet, and this is their TV. So you can see their talk shows and their news. There's all different genres of TV, but they're all weird and funny in the same, like, Blippo Plus way. At this point in week 1 of season 2 on the Playdate, Blippo Plus is in this narrative space of our Playdates are receiving the TV signal for the first time, and the aliens who are producing these TV shows are realising that we on Earth exist. And so the subject of the Blippo Plus programs is itself being like, oh, we're being watched by aliens on the other side of the universe. What is happening?
Dr. Boing, that must have come as quite a surprise. Absolutely, Madeline. We checked the readout over and over, but there's no faking it. Somewhere out there, PDs just like ours are sending out a small but powerful techno signature from across the galaxy. But how is it that we're able to receive this signal? It appears to be passing through a previously undetected anomaly in space.
It is genuinely streaming to the Playdate, which, while amazing, and I'm not quite sure how the actual device is capable of that, because I thought it was capable of a lot less, but you can't watch Blippo Plus on the go. So you have the Playdate, which I have said in my Playdate video prior to this is a perfect handheld, but now the most interesting thing about season 2 week 1 cannot be used out of the house or away from Wi-Fi. You need to be connected to Wi-Fi in order to stream the Blippo Plus shows. Like, how do we get a show on?
Oh,
I'm not sure if it needs the internet to run. It maybe looks like it needs...
but it's so creative.
I don't like that you have to be online to watch Blippo Plus, because the Playdate is like the handheld.
Oh, do you actually?
I can't show you like the fake TV shows because we're out on the subscriber-only launch.
Oh, yes.
And honestly, this is so good. Like, this is so like what it's for. So when Blippo Plus came up, it was like, wow, I'm watching like television on my Playdate. It was weird and amazing and just like blew my mind. I don't know why it was so like, this is crazy. There's a TV channel. There's 10 TV channels on my Playdate now, and yeah, they're not real TV channels. It's a parody of television, but a really good one. Interestingly, the Blippo Plus website says its programming will run for 11 weeks. So that's 11 weeks of story. This video is only going to cover the 6 weeks that the second season of Playdate runs for, so I won't be talking about the conclusion of Blippo Plus's narrative here in this video, but I'll keep checking in with it anyway, and letting you know what I thought of it as the weeks go by. So yeah, really looking forward to seeing what happens next week with all of it, really, I guess. Week 2 of Playdate Season 2. And what this week has made me realise is that it's not so much the games I'm reviewing as the week those games come out. The new games were Wheelsprung and Whiteout. In Wheelsprung, you are a squirrel on a motorcycle. You're a small guy in a big world, so you could be like in a bathtub or on a kitchen counter, and all of the kind of scenery and obstacles of the level are household items. So it looks cool. It's not just a basic motorcycle game. It's got this kind of like, you're a squirrel collecting nuts twist, which is fun. The thing I don't like about it is that it's a very twitchy, physics-based kind of platformer. One hit kills you. You have to restart the level if you take one knock, And it basically means that if you're going too fast or too slow or don't hit the curve just right, you have to just restart over and over and over. It's quite unforgiving. And I can see that there's an intention for this to be like, that's the comedic element. It just doesn't really appeal to me. I'm certainly no stranger to a high barrier to entry. It's just that this particular kind of physics-based platforming is not my cup of tea. I enjoyed, Fulcrum Defender the week before because it starts friendly and gets unfriendly quickly. So you very easily get hooked, like, oh, I was doing well, and then it starts to get harder. But I think I can do better because I've already learned the mechanic, whereas Wheelsprung is like, the bike is a bastard to control from the very word go. And if you're not interested in that, then you're not going to go much further. I will say Wheelsprung has a level editor, which I think is just incredible. When you pause the game, you can scan a QR code and go and download the game's own sort of development kit. It's not the first Playdate game to offer a level editor, but I just find it's amazing. Whiteout is a narrative-focused point-and-click adventure game, effectively. You play as the Traveller, who is a man wandering through the post-apocalyptic wilderness in a world which has sort of suffered some cataclysmic eternal winter disaster. So it's always snowing, Whiteout, and you're just a guy like trying to survive day to day. That's the where the story starts out. And you're already 10 years into this experience, so there's a lot of sort of world building and little narrative nuggets to give you the impression of what it's like to live in this place and what it takes to survive. So as you're trudging through the snow and you're being told this very dour story, you come across various little sort of gameplay challenges, like there'll be a wolf blocking your path, but if you found some meat that you can give the wolf, it will take that instead of eating you, and that allows you to continue on your way. Things like that happen, and the story builds up. Effectively, the Traveller finds an abandoned home where a family has lived, and he's sort of going through their house looking for resources, but also discovering what happened to this family. It's a very well produced game, developed by just one person. The graphics, the sound, and all of the sort of presentation of the gameplay, very, very strong. But I found that trudging through the snow very slowly to find, puzzles to do and little bits of narrative threads, I was just not down for it at all. And it was a shame because I could see how strong this game is, and I might sound like a bit of a hypocrite when Shadowgate PD eventually comes out and I start talking about how much I like point and click games. But this is the thing, is that it's the time when the games come out is the gamble. And this is not really a criticism of either game that came out this week, because they're both actually very good games. It's just that I wasn't feeling it. I will come back to these games at some point, when I've got my expectations in check, and take them at face value rather than, wishing a different kind of game would come out at that particular time. It was a kind of a stressful week for me. I was off work sick, I was really unwell, and I just wasn't in the mood for either of these games. And, that's just the way it goes sometimes with the randomly released season of games. So let's talk about Blippo Plus. The first week, the Blippians, or the people who live on planet Blip, were like, wow, we think aliens are watching our TV. And this week, they are creating programming that is catered for the aliens. So there's a show that's teaching us about their vocabulary, and they're talking about, oh, welcome, alien viewers.
Hiya, aliens. Do you party? If you're just joining us, I'm your new best friend, Polypixel.
And various characters are kind of taking centre stage more and more, and I'm wondering if that's going to, become more of the story, if there's going to be conflict between certain people. The astronomical anomaly, which allows the Blippo Plus signal to reach our playdates, is called the Bend.
Well, I'm sure you've seen the news about the anomaly.
The Bend.
The scientists, Professor Boying and Ned Telson, are researching the Bend and deciding how to best approach communicating with us, the viewers of Blippo Plus. I will say that Blippo Plus still, even into week 2, is crashing the playdate every now and again. Sometimes I go to close
Blippo Plus, and it just is like conks out and have to restart the Playdate. It's not a huge issue, but even after a firmware update, it's still struggling with its own concept somewhat. As well as the shows updating, Blippo Plus was also properly announced to be releasing on Switch in a few months' time, which is interesting because, for one thing, it will be in colour. But I'm also not sure how does that work with the narrative. Each week now, Blippo Plus is updating and we're getting a bit further in real time. So when it releases on Switch in the autumn, is that story going to start again from there for those users, or will it pick up from where we are now? I don't know. I still don't really know what Blippo Plus is all about. Is there going to be a game element? Is it going to turn into some sort of more interactive thing, or is it simply a thing you watch and that's all it is? It's just a kind of a show that is being delivered in this unorthodox way. I did take my Playdate to work in order to show people Blippo Plus and be like, what's going on with this? What do you think? And everybody was very sort of intrigued and confused by it in a positive way. I also tried to get my colleagues to play Fulcrum Defender and see what they thought of it, and they were, somewhat enthusiastic. One of them said to me, how can I just die? How do I die? It's what they said. How do I die? So yeah, that was week 2. Actually, the week 3 games have unlocked, and I have not looked at them yet. So I'm going to have a look. Let's have a look at them right now and see what we got. Oh, sorry, Blippo Plus was on. The week 3 games are Otto's Galactic, Grrove, and Long Puppy. Let's talk about Otto's Galactic Grrove first. This is a rhythm game that challenges you to hit the beats by using the crank. You turn the crank to move your little sort of target, just like a lot of other rhythm games. You hit the button as the notes go by. It's a rhythm game. The hook, the Playdate style hook though, is that they've added, a narrative structure. So you play as Otto, who, although looks like a dog, is apparently a sea slug, and Otto has been set off by his music producer owner across the galaxy to find new inspiration for music. Before new songs unlock for you to play, there's a little story sequence that sort of adds more jokes and theatrical framing to why you're doing this. Personally, I don't really see the need for a narrative structure around a rhythm game, but it doesn't hurt. It adds some fun. The graphics are quite snazzy. It's got kind of I would say almost like Parappa the Rapper kind of vibe. You could argue that if you took away the crank controls, this would be a completely unremarkable rhythm game. You're just pressing the buttons as the little notes come by. There's long notes and there's notes that go up and down. But because the soundtrack is actually so strong, I think it stands out even if you did take the crank away. It's got a very eclectic mix of musical styles. It's not limited to one type of music. So, there's hip hop and jazz and kind of new wave stuff, and there's a track in there that sounds particularly like the Phantasy Star Online soundtrack, which spoke to me. So yeah, I really like it, but I didn't play it as much as the other game this week, which was Long Puppy. Long Puppy has the secret sauce of a good platformer, which is to say that the best platformers make it fun just to move around. So whether you're completing the task that you've been given, it doesn't matter. Just moving about feels good. And I would say that, if you played your Mario Galaxies, you know what I'm talking about. Is it a bit grand to say that Long Puppy is as good as Mario Galaxy? Maybe. So I would say Long Puppy is a puzzle platformer where you play as a puppy, and the more the puppy eats, the longer the puppy gets. Your task in each level is to retrieve a lost ball, which your owner has carelessly sort of thrown beyond their own reach. But as a puppy that gets long, you can eat sausages and pizza slices and hamburgers and any bits of trash that you find around the level and get longer and longer and longer by turning the crank
pointing your nose where you want to go, dog elongates. It's one of the best games I've played on Playdate. It's one of the best platformers I've played in a long time. And yeah, maybe this wouldn't stand up next to your Mario Galaxies or your Mario Odysseys or any other flipping Mario game you want to name. But as far as what the Playdate can achieve and interfacing with its unique crank controls, Long Puppy has the secret sauce. The way that they have designed these stages so that you need to eat a bit of food to get longer, but then there'll be like another bit of food just out of reach. It is that classic thing. In this game, you're always being teased to be like, oh, well, if I was a bit longer, I could get up there. And if I was a bit longer, I could get up there. And I've seen a bit of food on the opposite side of this wall. I could just get over the wall and get the food. That is just, it's so satisfying just to eat and eat and eat and get longer and longer and longer, turn that crank, and just getting your dog to be as long as possible is so much fun that reaching the ball, that just means the level's over. And I'm just like, oh, I wish I could have just eaten and eaten and eaten and got longer and longer and longer. The one flaw, I think, of Long Puppy is that each stage has a timer. When that timer reaches 0, the ghost of the owner's former puppy appears, which is like this vicious, huge square black dog, and it will sort of float around going through the structure of the levels to catch you. And when the ghost puppy touches the Long Puppy, if you're holding the ball or you've stretched out, you'll sort of recoil back and lose the ball and have to retrieve it again. And the ghost can also take the ball and take it back to where it originally was lost. But the ghost puppy doesn't really present much of a challenge. It's very easy to avoid, and even when it touches you and attacks you, the level doesn't end. There's no game over. It's just that you've got to pick up the ball again. It's just a little bit underbaked in terms of how can we create an element of danger to make all of this feel a bit more worthwhile. So I would say that is its major flaw. But other than that, I love the sound effects, I love the look, I love sniffing little puddles of dog pee to fill out my dog piss journal or wherever it is, which is like a secret thing in each stage. You can smell other dogs' wee and have a piss diary. It's interesting actually, because I feel like Playdate is almost like the console of the puppy game, and maybe the crank being a bit tail-like has led designers this way. Oh man, it is flipping hot. It is hot this week. That's why I'm filming after dark, but it's still hot. Let's touch on Blippo Plus briefly. So the exciting event this week, which everybody on Blippo Plus was talking about, was the selection of the Blipponauts, or no, the Bendonauts, who are a group of 5 randomly selected people from the planet Blip who are going to be sent through the bend to meet the Earthlings.
5 courageous Bendonauts have been selected at random to reflect our civilization's best qualities.
Although I will say that the messages page of the Blippo Plus app has somewhat spoiled that the Bendonauts will go missing next week. But as most of the Blippo Plus shows are talking about the Bendonauts, a lot of people were dissatisfied with how these people were chosen and feeling like, oh, it should have been me, or isn't it a bit sort of suspicious who they picked and how they picked them? Because Professor Boring says they were chosen randomly. But it's fairly transparent from Professor Boring herself that fame is perhaps the #1 motivator when it comes to dealing with the bend.
They don't just get to go into the bend, they get to go on TV too.
And so do you. Dr. Boing, thanks for making small talk.
I'm hot. Right, I don't think I've got anything more to say. It will be week 4 soon enough. I'm trying to get my face in the same place it was in. Week 4 is now. The 2 games this week were Shadowgate PD and CatchaDiablos. So, as you've been watching me go through Season 2, you may have noticed that some games capture better than others. In week 2, both Wheelsprung and the Whiteout struggled to capture through Playdate's Mirror software, which is a really great piece of software that allows you to plug a Playdate into a computer and play the games on a big screen. But not all games run equally well through the Mirror as they do just on the Playdate, which can lead to screen tearing, sound lagging, and just not really having a very good gameplay experience. And also it makes a video a lot harder to make because what you're capturing doesn't look very nice. CatchaDiablos, however, has a really hard time playing through Mirror, which means it's basically uncapturable. And on top of that, when you play it on the Playdate in handheld, there is so much movement of the system, it's actually quite difficult to video the screen whilst I'm playing the game. So all of this is to say, this is a very hard game for me to present in a review, just from a practical standpoint. But CatchaDiablos, despite some flaws, is a really strong game. You play as a cat who is visiting a planet in space that is infested with demons, or Diablos, and your job is to draw little circles around these demons and capture them. And the more demons you collect, your power increases, and at a certain point, a boss demon appears and you defeat them. But also, your movement, the character's movement, is tied to a circular motion. And this requires turning the crank to move the circle, or turning the crank whilst holding a button down in order to move the cat. So you're constantly sort of tensing and untensing your left hand to the point where, after just a couple of minutes, hand cramps up quite quickly. The game also features a roguelike element, so when you die, you have to start back over from the very beginning every single time, which can be a bit of a drag because the levels you're dropped into in order to catch demons are not, designed in any way, not even with randomly generated obstacles. They're just open fields where demons sort of wander and attack you, and all of the gameplay is in drawing circles, dodging attacks, getting demons to go inside your circles. That is all very cathartic and fun, but it may have been more interesting to actually design little mazes where you could use this drawing circles mechanic to navigate and maneuver through a space in a kind of an interesting way, rather than just to drop you into an open field. So yeah, it's kind of repetitive and difficult to play in a way because it makes your hand hurt. So as much as I like it, it's a difficult one to kind of recommend. But honestly, it is one of the stronger games this season, despite everything I've said. It just would have mixed up the gameplay to have some level variety, and maybe just don't do the start from zero thing, because it stops you picking it up when you put that together with "oh, my hand hurts" when I play this, which is a shame. CatchaDiablos, great game, just got a few little caveats holding it back. Shadowgate PD. I had my eye on this long before Season 2 was announced. I'm a big Shadowgate enjoyer, in fact. For those who don't know, this is one of the most revered point-and-click adventure games of the late 1980s. And many years ago, I went through a phase of obsessively playing the NES version, which doesn't have a save feature, meaning you are forced to memorise the entire game in order to complete it. So I would sit and play this game over and over and over, to the point where I wish I'd recorded my time, because I'm sure it's actually close to a world record. I beat it in 26 minutes one time. Let's Google world record Shadowgate. Somebody's beaten it in 11 minutes and 19 seconds. That's pretty good. So of course, when Pixel Ghost, who were already an established Playdate developer, announced that they were doing this demake port of Shadowgate to the Playdate, I was very excited, and then even more so excited when they bundled it into Season 2. Now I'm playing Shadowgate PD. I can say that there are some things about having it on the Playdate which are a little bit disappointing. As a port of the original game, it is extremely faithful, a very strong recreation of it. The music is great, all of the puzzles seem to work exactly as they always did. Everything you know, or any guide that you look up about Shadowgate, it's just going to work for this game. However, it has to be said that this is a very antiquated title. I just feel that an optional sort of manual or tips page somewhere in the options would be a good addition, just to help people get started and then see why has this game been chosen to be ported to Playdate, you know, what makes it worth doing. I don't like the way they've changed the inventory UI to be symbols of the items you're carrying. So if you're carrying a sword, you see a sword, but also if you're carrying like a handful of stones and a handful of coins, you just see little black and white circles, and it's kind of a barrier to navigating it quickly and efficiently. I would say that the list-based UI from the NES was a lot more approachable and usable. I also feel that if you're going to take Shadowgate and put it onto the Playdate, let's get that crank involved a bit more. Let's do something with the Playdate, you know, that you couldn't do on other systems. You've got the crank, you've got the gyroscope. Doesn't the Playdate even have a microphone? But I would recommend Shadowgate, and it's something that's worth putting your time into and persevering with because it's very rewarding and it's very funny. You're not creeping through a dungy castle, but you are sort of sinking yourself into the dark, unforgiving world of 1980s technology and what game development was like. In that regard, you are going into like an ancient castle, if that's not too like fluffy to say. I'm going to touch on Blippo Plus very briefly this week because, as I said previously, they selected their Bendonauts and then they kind of spoiled that the Bendonauts were going to go missing for themselves. So a lot of the programming this week was sort of like the dejected tone of like, oh my god, did we just send these people off to die?
Sad news today, as the Bendonauts have not returned from their journey and are presumed dead.
One thing I will say though is that divination is a real core part of the Blippo culture. Ned Telson actually speaks to the dead in his show. If now the Bendonauts have died, maybe divination, speaking to the dead, is the next part of the story. We'll see. I can also see the purple light is flashing at me, which means week 5 starts right now. It's so real. Blows my mind. And the week 5 games are Tiny Turnip and Chance's Lucky Escape. Now, I must admit at the beginning of this week's recap that I've not been as engaged with the Playdate as some previous weeks in the season. That being said, I did complete Chance's Lucky Escape in one sitting, so it's kind of a mixed bag, and I'm not going to be too harsh on myself. But, you know, Tiny Turnip is a climbing platformer. You are a turnip who wants to climb a mountain, and you grow arms and start heave-hoing your way up there. I have to say I didn't immediately love this. I just didn't find the gameplay like that engaging. The climbing was not frustrating, but it didn't feel rewarding to me. But, you know, I put a bit more time in, and as I got deeper into this kind of Metroid style maze they've created, the kind of conceit of the game became more apparent. That it's an exploration game more than it's a climbing game in a way. Climbing is the method of engagement, but it's about how you feel, like discovering new areas and discovering secrets, I guess. It's a maze more than it's a mountain. And not only is the map very Metroid-esque, the first upgrade they give you is the ability to curl your arms back into your body and roll about morph ball style. So it's definitely kind of, you know, wearing its Metroid inspirations on its sleeve. But it doesn't really look like anything. It's kind of barren graphically, which is odd because the music is kind of amazing. If you like Shovel Knight, you're gonna, you know, love this soundtrack. So yeah, I will put more time into Tiny Turnip. Interestingly though, while playing Tiny Turnip, I had a realization about CatchaDiablos, which was, why did CatchaDiablos make my hand hurt while Tiny Turnip and Long Puppy don't? All three of these games feature a tandem control system where you're constantly using the crank whilst pressing buttons, and of course holding the system in your hands. The thing with Tiny Turnip and Long Puppy is that the rhythm of the crank turning and the button pressing is a bit more relaxed. There is a methodology to what you're doing. There's a stage of decision making before each interaction. In CatchaDiablos, you are constantly pressing the button and constantly turning the crank, and the two things together makes my hands hurt. So on to Chance's Lucky Escape, which is another point-and-click adventure game. So my first reflection on that is this feels like a lot of point-and-click adventure games, doesn't it? We've had the Whiteout, Shadowgate PD, and now Chance's Lucky Escape. That makes 3 point-and-click adventure games. And while I might not lobby this same criticism against platformers or puzzle games, I think those genres are more accessible and more broadly enjoyed than point-and-click. If point-and-click games are, your bread and butter, your favourite genre, you're going to be loving it. I mean, 3? This is great. But for me personally, it's getting a bit samey. Especially having had Shadowgate last week, I wasn't immediately excited to dive into Chance's Lucky Escape. But once I did sit down and play the game, I found that it is actually very, very short, and I played it all in one go, start to finish, non-stop. So that's a pretty resounding compliment for the game, I would say. You are a dog called Chance who is involved in some low-level criminal activity, and throughout the game you are on the run from the police. The game is broken up into 6 chapters, and each of these chapters features maybe 2 or 3 screens, which are static areas in which you have to solve a puzzle and move on to the next area. And given that you are being chased by the police, all of these puzzles have a kind of comedic twist that Chance, by luck, escapes the situation he's in, and then the police come and it appears to them that oh my god, this guy's like a genius mastermind criminal, how does he keep eluding us? So that's the recurring joke throughout the thing, and it's appealing. The puzzles are very basic though. If you click around enough and go through all the possible combinations of what can happen, you're going to get out of this situation. It very much is like my first point-and-click adventure game, and I think that's totally fine. It's just a shame it's come at the tail end of the season and not earlier, where maybe it could have worked as an initiation to the genre. In relation to my comments on Shadow PD as well, Chance's Lucky Escape uses crank and the microphone, and it claims to use the gyroscope. Even though personally I never came across a puzzle where I needed the gyroscope, it says has gyroscopic control. So perhaps if I ever play it again, I might discover where that gyro is implemented. But it's nice to see a game taking full advantage of all of the Playdate's controls, not just the crank. I got to blow out some birthday candles. What can I say? It's a joy. 2 good games, 2 completely different genres. You can have your sort of mind-bending, almost full-body control turnip climbing adventure with Tiny Turnip, or have a very laid-back, bite-sized point-and-click adventure experience with Chance's Lucky Escape. So we're coming to the end. Next week will be the last week of Season 2, and then it'll be over. So it's going to be kind of sad, I think. I'm going to miss doing this. The final week is here. Week 6 is upon us. Season 2 has come to an end with its last 2 games, Black Hole Havoc and Taria and Como. Much like week 5, I was a bit busier than I usually am in week 6, so I haven't played the Playdate as much as I wanted to. But I did take the Playdate with me whilst I visited my grandparents, which meant I got to play 0-0 Perfect Stop with my granddad, who's a big train fan, so that was pretty fun. These being the last 2 games of the season, I think expectations are probably a little bit higher for, things to end on a bit of a bang. So Black Hole Havoc is described as a cinematic shooting game, while I would describe it as a 2-dimensional action puzzle game. The idea is that black holes are appearing everywhere and you need to destroy them by firing identically sized black holes at them. So there's black holes ranging from tiny to absolutely massive, and you use your black hole firing device to shape your own black holes to match up and destroy the ones that are in your area. And as the game progresses, you can ricochet black holes to avoid obstacles, or the area the black holes are in will start to get smaller, so it's more difficult to get rid of them. You need to get rid of them more quickly. Interestingly, this game offers two very different control styles, and one is dependent on the crank. Naturally, it being a Playdate game, I went into this thinking, well, that's how I want to, play. I want to engage with that. But after putting a bit of time into it, I found that I just wasn't getting a good flow. I felt like it was taking too long to get the black hole to the right size and then fire it and then go on to the next one, and it slowed down the game a lot. And I was sort of like, why doesn't this game feel good? And it wasn't until I started to try the other control scheme and dock the crank that it all clicked for me, and I started to get into a more rapid gameplay flow and things started to feel satisfying. So it's interesting that although the idea of turning the crank to expand or contract a black hole sounds very exciting, in my experience, it just became like a massive barrier to the game flow state that I wanted to get into, and things were much more fun and satisfying when it became a more regular game. There are plenty of Playdate games which are absolute bangers that don't touch the crank, and while it's great that they offer a crank control option, I just felt like it wasn't even necessary, and this game is perfectly satisfying and enjoyable without it. So yeah, I think it's a good game. I think it could be a little bit more satisfying. I think that they could have sped things up a bit more by having maybe they could have had a rapid fire mode, maybe where the black holes are being destroyed just as new ones are appearing. So you're constantly in a pow pow pow. You get rid of one black hole, another one appears, and things maybe get faster and faster and faster, and you just sort of get into a zen kind of mode. It's not a very zen puzzle game. It's kind of a bit thinky, I would say, and I wish they kind of took the Havocness of the name and just sort of sped things up a bit more Fulcrum Defender, basically, where you kind of lose yourself in the flow state of the gameplay, and I think it needs a bit more speed. Taria and Como was the final game, ultimately, of the whole season. It sits in the top spot of your Season 2 list forever now. This is a narrative-driven platforming game. Narrative games aren't always the ones that attract me on Playdate. But in this case, I think it's very obvious that they saved this and curated it into the last spot because Panic knew that this was one of the strongest games of the season. The story centres around two sisters. They live in this post-apocalyptic world which is controlled by a kind of unseen corporation that has sort of ravaged their environment and whisk their parents off away somewhere. So your goal is to kind of seek out your parents and see sort of if you can find some cracks in this corporation and their control over the world. How it's played is that Taria is disabled. She has one prosthetic leg. You can hop and jump around, but that isn't your main method of movement. The idea is to work with this little partner robot you have to throw kind of a whip up into the air and then swing, rappel down, ravel your rope up so you can get to different places. So there's a lot of kind of momentum-based gameplay where you'll be hopping off a platform, swinging to a certain point, letting go of the rope, and then landing in just the right spot. The whole point is that the game gets you into the mindset of somebody who has a physical disability and gets you thinking through the physical problems that Taria has in the same way that a disabled person might have to address issues like that in everyday life. It does take a couple of minutes to kind of get used to the feel of the game, but it runs incredibly well, and I think just it's a technical achievement that they've made this kind of gameplay feel so smooth. I'm also really impressed that this game runs so well through the mirror. I mentioned previously that CatchaDiablos and other Season 2 games have struggled with the mirror system, but Taria and Como is, I think, one of the most visually complex games. It's one of the most gameplay complex games. I think the technical requirements of having a rope and a swinging mechanic must be quite complicated. And it runs like a dream. It runs so perfectly through the mirror, which is great because if this is a game about, disabilities, it wants to make itself as accessible as possible. And Mirror is one of Playdate's strongest accessibility features when it works properly, because some games just don't, which is a caveat, kind of maybe an unavoidable issue, but Taria and Como is not one of those games. So this has been a really nice week to end on. Two completely different kinds of games, both a bit more actiony, so certainly more to my taste with, the high score based Black Hole Havoc. Taria and Como is a lot more sort of mindful and makes you think in a way that not all platformers actually do, which is interesting. I want to have one last word about Blippo Plus. You probably noticed I skipped over talking about Blippo Plus in my Week 5 recap, and that's because I kind of decided that while I've given a taste of what the story is, I don't want to spoil it for other people who are waiting to pick up Blippo Plus on Steam or the Switch, or maybe Playdate at a later date. Blippo Plus is an 11-week ongoing narrative, and I'm only covering the 6 weeks that Season 2 is happening for, so I was never going to be able to review Blippo Plus in its entirety anyway. But I will say it has remained as entertaining and captivating as it was when it first popped out, and the only detraction I've got for Blippo Plus is that the story does move quite slowly. I think they could have got through some more exciting narrative points in the earlier weeks, and it is also kind of a shame that in a way it's by far the most interesting thing that happened on the Playdate during Season 2. The Playdate turning into a television, I think, kind of eclipsed what was going on with the games, at least for me, in the first couple of weeks. But I'm still watching and scrolling through all the Blippo Plus shows, and I'm pretty sure I will get it again on Switch just so I can see it in colour and maybe watch it on an actual TV. As a video professional, the sort of grungy, hyper-analog, style of the shows really appeals to me, and it getting crunched down into a 1-bit screen. It's the thing I didn't know I wanted, and I think that's what a lot of people would say about Blippo Plus, that this is just some crazy weird thing that happened. I think it's worth counting it as an aside to Season 2, not really part of Season 2. But if you were on the fence about getting the second season, Blippo Plus definitely increases the value.
Madeline! Please! Madeline, this is serious, don't leave!
So with this whole video where I've been sitting down and recapping each week and reviewing each game as they come out, really what I've been trying to say is this is what the experience of Season 2 happening has been like. Should you be playing these games as they come out and marking the time as this was when Long Puppy happened and then we're moving on, or regardless of the fact that these games are releasing weekly, just sort of say, well, I'm not going to play it till later, in which case, does the season structure really mean anything? I think the question is, would I have stuck with Season 2 as much as I have if not for making this video? And truthfully, I think I probably would have dropped off around week 5, week 6, which may say more about my taste in games or my lifestyle than the season release structure. I was absolutely waiting for Shadowgate PD to come along, so perhaps that would have just quenched my thirst and I would have come back to the week 5, week 6 games later. But also, life just got kind of busy. Life was busy at the start of the season, and life was busy at the end of the season. It was when Long Puppy came out that I was the most available to engage with the Playdate, and that was the game I think I enjoyed the most. So is that a coincidence, or just the shape of my free time? It's kind of hard to say. In any case, I think dropping the length from Season 1's 24 games to the 12 of Season 2 was the best choice they could have made, because it just makes it easier to engage with in the long term when that long term isn't too long. I think Season 2 ultimately has captured and achieved what Panic wanted to do with the Playdate much better than Season 1 even. And I think that's naturally down to developers maturing with the Playdate and Panic's own curation of what the Playdate is good for getting stronger. There really are no duds in all of Season 2. There are a couple of games that didn't speak to me immediately, but generally I'd be very surprised if any Playdate fan bought Season 2 and didn't find numerous games that they loved, because it's such a strong collection. there is no better way to experience Playdate, I think, than through Season 2. That would be my final say on it. Thank you very much for watching this mega long episode. If you made it this far, I hope you got what you were looking for, because I certainly did, which was to listen to myself talk for like an hour. Is it 6 episodes? Have you just watched 6 Fossil Arcades? Or is it just one big one? You tell me. You tell me.